This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, Franklin County. I'm Lisa Duvall from the Franklin County Chamber of Commerce, and we are having interviews with members and people in the community who are doing some really interesting work during this time. And today I'm really happy to welcome Dee Boyle-Clapp, who is the Director of the Arts Extension Service at UMass. Welcome, Dee.
Hello, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, it's so good to see you. Dee.
You too. Oh my gosh.
He has been working in the arts for, 30 years, 25 years. Has taught studio art, art history, arts management, has an MFA in sculpture, sits on numerous boards, has done research, written books. Really, you know a lot. And Dee is going to talk to us today about a lot of really important things happening right now in this COVID-19 period. How artists can have interns to help in their creative businesses, and also what the Arts Extension Service does, and finally about really fascinating research that is coming out about arts organizations and from the organization's perspective, from the patron's perspective, what kinds of things will people want to do? How can artists and creative businesses transition from a lot of this free online model to something that will work and pay the bills and keep everyone safe? There's a lot to talk about. So Dee, thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you talk a little bit about the Arts Extension Service and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. First, we have been at the university since 1973, so we have a long history and evolution. What we do currently is we teach classes on campus and online in arts management and arts entrepreneurship. We do a lot of professional development for artists. I do a host of artist and business trainings, public art trainings. We also do publications. You mentioned the books. We have a book called Fundamentals in Arts Entrepreneurship, or Arts Management, excuse me. And we have a host of other books that we sell. One of the big things that we do, though, is we run an internship program through our Arts Entrepreneurship Initiative. And what we do there is we try to take the what we consider the most important resource of the university, which is the students, and connect them with individuals within the community who are artists, maybe musicians. We also connect them with arts organizations, museums, schools, etc., to help the students actually grow their own career and their interest in the arts. So that's our internship program, and we're looking for summer internships, primarily virtual right now, given the circumstances. What we also do is we're doing a lot of research right now into the role of the arts in terms of sustainability. That's the next piece of what we're really going to be focusing on. Is trying to help arts organizations actually take a really active role in addressing the climate crisis, of which COVID is really truly a part of this whole process. So we do a lot of different work. We are always looking at ways to connect the region and connect the community so that they work together. And the role of the Arts Extension Service is also to play sort of a role in our community to help understand and connect the university with what's happening in the region. Like you, I serve on the Creative Economy Network board, Mass Creatives board, so we get a sense of what's also happening not only regionally but also across the state. And it's really, there's a lot of work that's being done right now in the midst of this crisis. So it's a really exciting time in so many ways, and it's also kind of a scary time. We know that there's been so much disruption, so much fear, so much economic hardship, a lot of pain if people have been ill or if they've lost loved ones. So this is really a difficult moment. But I do want to say that I really give shout out to all the arts organizations, because they immediately stepped up, provided people with things to do, ways to deal with their time, ways to cope, and ways to address this moment. So people have really done a great job.
Yeah, great. What are some examples of the kinds of internships that you're offering, especially during this particular strange time?
Sure. What we're doing is we're asking arts organizations to create their own internships. And what we've done is try to streamline this a little bit. So we're creating templates. We've got basically 4 primary templates based on what people have already typically offered for their own internships. So there's marketing, there's fundraising, there's a research template basically, and then there's kind of a general operations sensibility. So, and what we want people to do is pick from within those pieces, and what we will do is help you as an organization or as an individual artist help to craft your internship description so that it's A, compliant, and B, it's also interesting for the students so that they'd be more willing and more likely to actually participate and want an internship from an individual. If it's possible, we're hoping that organizations can offer a small stipend to students, if it's possible. If not, the students really are going to have literally very, very little to do this summer. And I know from my own students that they would very much like to continue their own personal professional development. Also, what they'd like to do is be of service. So what we're hoping the students can do is take their skills in research and help an organization use those skills. Some of the internships that we have seen and some of the requests that we've had are students who have a bit of a fundraising background. So if they've taken our fundraising class, they've now done and created, working with a real case study organization, they've actually created a 3-year fundraising plan. They understand how to do prospect research so they can participate. A lot of our students live across the country right now. They went back home for spring break and they have not come back.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter as long as they have access to the internet, they can do the work. Lots of marketing work, lots of social media projects, etc. A little bit of database cleanup, students can do it as long as it's legally compliant, means that it doesn't replace a job and that there is a learning component to it so that the students have something that they will learn how to do.
Yeah, that's great. And how can should they just contact you if they're interested, or go to the Arts Extension Service website and fill a form out? Yeah.
If they yeah, absolutely. If you go to our website right now, what we're doing, we're in the process right now of creating, we have a survey that's going out, and the survey is on our news page, which just go to umass.edu/AES, and there's a link from our homepage. It's also the top of our news page. It's basically the headline is, how can AES, Arts Extension Service, help you? And what we mean by that is, how can we help you draft an internship? It's not only for today. We know that a lot of organizations just do not have the capacity right now today, but we're willing to help you draft something for the fall or for a little bit later as well.
Great. That's really helpful.
Great.
Yeah, in Franklin County, we had 10% of our economy is creative economy, so I'm sure we'll have a lot of speakers for that. So let's get into the state of arts right now. And there's a lot of interesting research coming out about how people can transition, how are people going to feel comfortable going out, how can arts creative businesses structure their operations to be workable and pay the bills and be safe.
Right, exactly. I look at what's happening right now in sort of with two different lenses. The lens number one is obviously from the arts organization's perspective. What are the needs of an organization? What are the needs of your staff? How do you keep everything sort of moving so that you can stay in operations? The other side is really the patron side, the participant side. Who's going to come? Why? What are they looking for? So if we just break those down into sort of two levels, regardless of which side you're looking at, the number one thing across the board is safety. People want to be safe. As a person who runs a department, as a person who runs a program, you absolutely want to make sure that you personally are safe and that your staff is safe, and that anybody who walks in your door is either healthy or well or will not get infected with this horrible, incredible thing, right? So those are number one, is that safety concern. The second thing from an arts organization perspective is I can't help but wonder, it's like we were talking about social distancing and having fewer chairs in a concert hall, or having people sit in alternate seats. How can you as an organization run your business with fewer seats? Organizations have been struggling with full seating. So how are you going to make those adjustments? 25%, 50% capacity, how's that going to cover the bills? And what some organizations are looking at is there's a shift in programming offerings. You can't possibly bring in the full symphony. People are instead thinking really seriously about switching over to smaller sized organizations, smaller number of people on the stage, single performers as opposed to a full ensemble, etc. Then the other piece of that is, how are you going to get people to actually come to these events? And some of those things might be, we'll talk deeper about those because I think they're kind of fascinating. Another issue for organizations is, how do you get people to come in waves that are safe? And part of that is people are considering, like the New England Museum Association and others are looking at possibly timed entries, so that you come in and you don't have to wait in a long line for a long period of time, but instead you have your time. I can get in at 2 o'clock, but that also means you have to leave because somebody else is waiting for you. Not unlike when we go to the grocery store now, it's like, oh, before the next person can come in, somebody has to walk out. So you have your timed ticket, basically. You have to have a shorter duration of time within each space. So if you're coming to a museum or a gallery, you have to kind of move people along a little bit more. So there'll be a change in how we move. Another sort of piece is, thinking about it from
I think it was last summer or the summer before, and frequently happens at Mass MoCA, there was these special timed exhibits where you could go in from 2 to 2:30. So there's going to be a lot more of those kind of experiences, which is fun for a small contained environment. But when you want to go into a museum, if you're feeling down, or you just want like to soak in a whole day of inspiration, it's not going to be like that. You're going to be rushed.
It might change. I think it might change, and we don't know exactly how all of these things will change. I was thinking earlier today, it's like, things like, if you think about going to an event, like the whole concept of like an intermission, like what does that do? What is the role of an intermission? It gives people a break. You can go to the bathroom. It gives people a break. You can go have something to eat. It gives people a chance to talk with their friends if they've gone to an event with colleagues or with friends. That's probably out the window. And yet for arts organizations, that bit of refreshment is actually really significant amounts of income. You can make as much, I remember from running the art bank way back when, we would make as much from intermission and from snacks as we would from actually people paying at the door. So those are going to really be affecting organizations going forward. Right. So those are some of the issues that we're going to be dealing with. I'll just throw out one more just to throw it out because it's fascinating to me, which is that people are thinking about like the perception from potential people participating, and the whole idea of like people walking into a space and going, oh, it smells like disinfectant. Somebody must have just cleaned this space, therefore I must be okay. People are going to want more of those types of things. They're going to want to see that the person taking their ticket and giving them change is wearing gloves and lots of hand cleaning and masks, etc. It's a little disconcerting as well, though, to be served by somebody who's wearing a mask. So we're going to have there's going to be a lot of shifts in how we perceive the arts going forward. It's definitely going to change.
Yeah. So much of it is about interacting with other people, well, that's what the arts do. They bring people together to experience together and process together, and that's really going to change.
Absolutely.
However,
fascinating to me is, go ahead.
A lot of this has been happening online, as we know, and people can comment and sort of like congregate that way. But there's also been a significant amount of money raised online, especially for musicians. And I'm wondering if some of your research will factor in a hybrid of some of this online stuff for income with the in-person stuff. Maybe you're going to get into that.
I actually haven't thought about that a whole lot. It's in many ways it feels to me either or, except along the lines of what arts organizations need right now. And I think that looking at other fields, what's been really helpful to me to look at has been like the restaurant associations. They've done such a great job of putting out the word of like, if you care about this place, you must go to it, or buy gift cards, or do takeout. Like there's other ways to participate in things. And I think the equivalency in our field is, please, if you have disposable income, if you are one of the lucky people who have not lost a job, continue to support your organizations, continue to fund them, continue to become a member, Giving Tuesday just happened and I haven't heard the results of it yet. but people need that income, and that's going to be crucial. I
Yeah.
think the other piece that I've been watching is students of mine having finished their final papers. They did a bit of research on different organizations and some of those opportunities. And one of the students was saying how she's a dancer and she wasn't able to take dance lessons. But there was an organization that she's been following for a long time online in New York City that was offering a discounted fee to take dance lessons online. And she did take them, and she said it was actually, a little weird at the beginning, but it actually was wonderful as she got into it. And it's like they could watch her, they could give comments, she could, learn a lot from the process. So there are creative ways that people have been trying to stay open and vibrant. And those are some of the things that I think have been really fantastic.
Yeah, I wonder what the rate of reluctance is to do that. Because I take voice lessons, and my vocal coach is now offering online, but I haven't taken it up yet because I feel like I don't know how that's going to be. Like, I like being there in person. But,
Yeah.
it's just taking the plunge.
The place that I take my dogs for dog school is doing online dog training classes. So I think everybody has tried in their own way. I haven't done it, to transition, because that's where the money is. And also that's been our lifeline. And depending upon, like, we're all getting a little zoomed out right now. Multiple of calls, just my second Zoom call today. But people are getting a little tired of it. But I think initially that whole concept of, wow, all these people did these amazing things. They opened up their museums. They had concerts that were free. All of the free things that came out right away showed to me that arts immediately stepped up. That sense of service and that sense of we're going to be here for our community was absolutely on the mark, the right thing that they did. And now we need to turn that around to go, okay, that worked for the first month. And statistically, they say that there was a peak, and it peaked at like mid to late March in terms of people's participation online, in terms of museums participation. It just got burned out or tired. Now we're ready for something else. And as the weather, luckily for us, it's still cool outside, so there's not that sense of I need to run to the beach or anything. But people are going to get tired of this, and they need to start thinking about other ways that they can do, they can have different types of experiences soon.
Yeah. And what kinds of things do you think that could be for, or do you think that can offer?
Yeah. What the statistics are showing is that the people are actually already being interviewed and being asked what kinds of things, will you come back? Because that's a real fear as well. And people are saying, yes, I will go back, but I'm not going to go back to the same types of organizations. So there's a shift in what people are saying they want to do. So instead of saying, I will go to the fill in the blank symphony or the theater or movie, etc., now they're saying, I want to do things like go to a public park. I want to go to the zoo. I want to go to a botanical garden. So anything that they can do where they can have agency and move around. Sculpture parks, those types of things where people can move around. Those are things that people are more likely to participate in right now. Museums, if they can have access and move around, those are all possible. People have been noting, though, that they're less likely to go to a concert, to a science museum, to a performing arts venue like a theater, and movie theaters on these lists of things are dead last. Absolutely last, because people don't want to be in a place where they can't move. They don't want to ticket, they don't want to do things. If you think of a science museum, little kids are always touching everything, and that's a thing that they're afraid of. So I think the types of things are going to move. As arts organizations, though, we can think about this as, oh, okay, what am I going to do? Sculpture in the park, great. How about we have our concerts outside? Can we do like Shakespeare in the park? What are the things that we can do to help people go and shift around a little bit? I watched your wonderful interview with Jim Olson talking about the Green River Festival and how they had to cancel it. But if you think about that event, it's so packed with so many people. But can they be spread out to a farther distance? Can people move a little bit? I'm thinking about something like double-edged theater, which moves people and is already sort of quasi inside and then outside. What can people do that's more creative? We're good at this. This is what we do as a field. But we are going to have to come up with ways to do things, I think, that are going to be less costly for the venue, for the organization, and yet still pays the artists who participate because they are going to need this money more than ever.
Yes. And how long do you think this is going to last in terms of what will what will people feel comfortable with in terms of going back to a
Mm-hmm.
theater? What has to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Vaccine,
Yep.
probably, or
That's it.
are
Mm-hmm.
arts organizations sort of seeing this and planning indefinitely that they're just going to change for good, or do they think that they're going to be able to go back to the old model of, I'm on the board of the
Mm-hmm.
Shea Theater, we're a 350 seat theater. Will we be able to
Mm-hmm.
function maybe in a year or when a vaccine
Mm-hmm.
comes out?
Right. There's a whole, again, back to the studies of what people have done. And I credit Colleen Dillon Schneider for this following the information I'm going to share with you. The number one thing that will make people feel comfortable or feel safe going back to organizations, number one is vaccine. I mean, we all feel that, we all know that, but we're being told 12 to 18 months, depending upon who you speak to and whatever's going on. Another interesting thing is people said if government lifted their restrictions, because I think there's a sense of trust in the next couple of things that I will share. Seeing other people participate would make people be willing to participate, which I thought was fascinating. An
Yeah,
ability to, like we said earlier, to be outside. Those are all things that people are thinking that I will do this if. Again, it's like access to hand sanitizer. So if you're going to go to the Science Museum, can I, before I let my kid touch something, am I going to be able to wash his or her hands
yeah,
or touch something myself and do that? Seeing organizations choosing to reopen, I think people trust their local organizations. They trust their friends and colleagues. So if you say it's okay to go to the Shea, maybe it's because you have cleaned the daylights out of spaces. You've done the seating chart so that people are separated out. They're going to trust that you've done your due diligence.
yeah.
Limits on the number of people in the space. Again, time tickets. Ironically, people have said that they would feel comfortable going into a place if they saw health monitoring, like literally temperature checks. I think that
Wow.
would freak me out, but that's something people
Yeah.
said they'd be okay with. And then last but not least was knowing cleaning procedures of the organizations.
Huh. Interesting.
I know, it's like, but that's what people are saying when they're being asked. So if we as arts organizations know that that's what people want, can we invest heavily enough to put hand sanitizers throughout our building? Can we, what are these things? What can you do and what can you not do that
Right.
makes your space viable? I
Yeah, yeah.
actually have to add, I also feel like being able to open up the windows and having lots of air going through a space would make me personally feel a little bit more relaxed about being in a space. Moving things outdoors, like we said a minute ago, I think those are some of the things that we're seeing. There's also just like a generational kind of change, which is that no matter what happens, senior citizens and folks who have vulnerabilities and have had pre-existing issues, they're less likely to return to our organizations. And since we know that statistically, the folks who participate in our organizations and who give money to certain types of things in particular, they tend to, fall on the older edge of the scale. We have to be really careful about what we're going to do. So does that mean we have senior concerts, like they do have senior hours for, the grocery store? Do we have previews where people get to be seated separately? I mean, there might be lots of things that we have to think about in order to make people feel good about coming back and
Yeah.
that we are also serving our communities as well as we can.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Wow. A
It's
lot to think about.
scary.
Yeah.
I think that we as a field, I mean, literally, like if we can stand a few more of these, like conference calls and Zoom calls and just like best practices, let's toss it out there. These kinds of conversations are happening all the time. The Baker administration's working on trying to figure out like what's the reopening going to look like. We also don't have to reinvent the wheel. What are they doing in other countries to make sure that places feel safe?
Right.
What are other organizations doing? The New England Museum Association is working really hard to try to figure out what are those best practices. The Barrington Stage came up with their idea of this is what we think we're going to do to reopen, and others are looking at that really carefully going, that might work for us. So
Yeah.
we can use the best ideas of folks out there. We don't have to sit in our boardrooms and kind of go, oh my gosh, what are we going to
Yeah.
do? But I
Yeah.
think taking the time to really learn from each other is going to be really helpful.
Yeah. Uh, I just had a question for you and now I forgot.
Mhm.
Um,
I'll give you a
oh
second to think.
yes,
Yeah.
I know what it is. Does this affect your courses that you're going to be teaching? Are you going
Hmm.
to be formulating, you know, pandemic relief courses?
Yeah. No, that's a really great question.
Yeah.
We are going through all of our classes, and we are reimagining the questions, and we are imagining what's going to be the responses. So right now this summer we're offering Introduction to Arts Management. And what we typically do in that class is we have people go to an event. And I teach that class as well. And you have to go, and it's a 4-week participatory thing. Like, here, go observe all these different things. People aren't going to be able to go this year.
Yeah.
So we are having to rework all of our assignments. We are offering grant writing in session 2 of this summer session. And I just literally had a conversation with the co-instructors this morning. And they are really reworking the curriculum because they're going, okay, what are we going to do as a field? Right
Yeah.
now, the reality is that foundations are dealing with, like, Maslow's hierarchy of need. It's the most basic level right now. Food, shelter, basics. So what can arts organizations do? Let's do what we do best. Let's partner. Let's collaborate. What's the role of the arts anyway in terms of healthcare and mental health? So partnering with other organizations. So they're going to really talk a lot about how do we do those types of things? How do we insert ourselves in a positive way with hospitals and others to help organizations really think about this is the best role of the arts right now. Mental health is such a huge issue this summer and with COVID. So those are some of the things that the organizations are looking at. By partnering, then we can now tap different money to help our organizations work. Maybe we as the arts organizations are really going to be more of a conduit to help artists get paid. And
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. Those are really important pieces because we need to do that work.
Yeah.
We don't have the arts without making sure that the artists and the performers are whole and that they can continue to do their work. So the classes are definitely changing
Yeah.
in the fall because we still don't know if are we going to be 100% online? Are we going to be half on campus for the first part and then they zoom us off before the worry hits? Maybe they're talking now maybe half on campus and half off. Is like a shortened in-person session. So what we're doing is we always work with case study organizations. So we're reinventing how we're going to be working with those organizations. Like I mentioned earlier, it's like, you learn how to do a 3-year fundraising plan. We work with an actual agency in the area. So there's conversations, there's visitations, there's a lot that we do. So we are getting ready to pivot and be prepared to just go 100% online. We do have one advantage though, in that we were basically born online. We started our classes online and then we actually moved to the campus in 2011. So we weren't actually ever teaching campus classes to traditional age students until 2011. So we have a lot of institutional memory in terms of being able to teach classes online first.
Great. I could actually see a lot of organizations structuring internships on, okay, help us figure out how to exist now. How can we shift our model?
Yeah.
Help us reinvent our strategy. And that would be a fascinating
Mm-hmm.
internship to do as a student, I think.
It would it would be. I actually personally wouldn't hand
Pretty
my
high.
3-year strategy over to a student. But I think having them do some of the research pieces, like go
Yeah.
figure out this, go do all this research. What is, know your own bone doing? What is this organization doing? Come back with best practices. What's
Yeah.
happening in England? What's happening in Germany? How are these organizations moving? I think that we can have all those pieces tied together, and the students can do amazing work in terms of helping organizations really like think and plan and prioritize. So there's a lot for them to do.
Yeah.
The other big piece is messaging.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go on.
Messaging. We have to stay alive in the minds of our patrons, our communities. It's like so many organizations have stepped up and done so many things for free. It's really important that organizations remind their people who they serve, I need you too. And that's a role that the students can play just by, sharing what they've done. We do a thing, it's called Throwback Thursday. And it's just because we've been around for such a long time that we have a lot of archival work. And we toss out, pictures and images and, old stories that we've done. And organizations could use something like that for just to remind everybody else of what they're doing and what they've done for the organization, what the organization has done for their communities. And students can do work like that. So there's a lot that can happen.
Well, thank you, Dee. This is really great information. So needed.
Well, thank you. There's a lot, and it's going to continue to change and evolve. So I hope we get a chance to keep talking together over the summer. So thank you. Stay well.
Yes, you too. And your website again?
It's you can find us two different ways. It's either umass.edu/AES, or you can just go www.artsextensionservice.org, and you can find us. It's the same website.
Great. Well, thank you again. I've been talking to Dee Boyle-Clapp, Director of the Arts Extension Service. I'm Lisa Duvall from the Franklin County Chamber of Commerce. Okay, thanks, Dee.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.